All right, we're back with a special edition for you. Our special guest is a music reporter, author, historian of the mighty Cheap Trick. It is Ross Warner. Ross, welcome.
How you doing?
The author of the book American Standard. I am seeing it everywhere, and I know you got a copy of the book there somewhere.
Yeah, I guess it's downstairs, but yes.
Oh, okay. Well, it is amazing. I'm seeing it in Barnes and Noble. I'm seeing it in, like I say, I was just at Twist and Shout in Denver and Amoeba in Hollywood. You know, all the music acts that are getting their star on the Boulevard now, it's all in front of Amoeba. So you
That's
got
awesome.
you got everything from gosh, Go-Go's and Billy Idol and Sammy Hagar and I can't even count all the people, Frankie Valli, everybody musically, they've been putting them kind of right in between, right around Amoeba, which is right across the street from the Pantages Theater, famous old theater, and it's on the same side of the street, just a block west of the Fonda Theater, which is still a very active concert theater in the heart of Hollywood.
Yeah,
So
I have two actually, 95 and '05. I have two really good Black Crows sets of bootlegs from both those places from the Fonda in
yeah.
'05 and then the
Oh
Pantages.
yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. I went to a New Year's Eve show at the Pantages years back. It was in the 80s and it was Chuck Berry and Jerry Lee Lewis on
Wow.
New Year's Eve at the Pantages. That was pretty cool.
Killing.
But we're talking this book, American Standard. Of course, there's other books out, but your book has a unique perspective as you are. And most importantly, tell us the era. I know you are focused on, kind of the early days, the development of the band through what era? What is your focus?
My focus really, like I said, is on the era that everybody remembers Cheap Trick from. So really, from 75 through 80. Like I said, when I started the book, I didn't know that Brian Cramp was already writing a book called This Band Has No Past after the name of the, fictional epic bio they had. And his is very much more focused on Sick Man for Europe and the Pagans and Zeno. And it's very, like I said, it's a very podcast kind of level, type of kind of forensic examination. So what I originally wanted to just write about Budokan and to kind of dispel um, some of the myths of about the album, to actually find out which versions of what are on there. Like I said, the only person that knows that information is Bunny Carlos, and he said his notes were probably buried. I know at one point he had like an airplane hangar worth of stuff. So um and then as I kind of delved into it, like I said, I sort of embraced the approach that I kind of knew that the band themselves really wouldn't be interested in being interviewed for a book. I mean, they knew about it, and certainly they can have any copy they want. So I kind of went in with that. What I didn't expect, like I said, was that Bunny Carlos would pretty much, answer all of my questions via Facebook. He had sat along with Ken Adamany and been quoted in Brian's book. But since this was a different era, it took a while for them, I guess, to kind of trust me. Even though it might not be the most journalistic, integrity laden move. I mean, Ken, for instance, obviously, left, he parted ways with the band, or they parted ways with him in the mid '90s, and
Original manager. Was he booking shows in the beginning? Or was he
yeah,
just
I mean, Ken Adamany, even before Cheap Trick, he played in a band with Steve Miller. He was kind of like a Madison legend, and he owned the Factory in Madison, which was, and I have it in the book, the venue where Otis Redding was supposed to play the night that his plane went down. Because obviously Ken, I mean, years have passed, but since there was obviously, legal wranglings, I think, he wanted to make sure that nothing that he said came off as, um, snarky or anything like that. Obviously, when asked, I mean, only Bun really, well, Bun in his Hall of Fame speech, said all of our managers, but I did let Ken take a look at it, and he was very good about, he never asked really to change anything, or, he confirmed a lot of things. Like I said, he has, every single letter, every single phone log, he has the letter they wrote to the Japanese promoters of what songs, they were considering playing for Budokan, so he had the cover letter that Rick Nielsen wrote to Music Life magazine, which he constantly talks about. The article that he wrote is kind of the genesis of the Cheap Trick Japanese connection. So it was really cool to see that stuff. I mean, again, Backbeat, my publisher, was acquired by Bloomsbury, which I guess is good for them. Right after the book came out, so I had to make sure everything was cleared. I had a lot of cool stuff that they wouldn't include in the book unless I could get someone to sign off on. There were people, photos that I couldn't even find people who took them. There's a great shot of the American Music Awards in 1980 of Rick and Michael Jackson and Rick James, which is a great picture. I posted everywhere to people, but I mean, I do not know who took it. I got in touch with Ron Alexenberg, who was the head of Epic at the time. He didn't know. So, yeah, I focus on that era. And again, like I said, like we've talked about, I think, it's fascinating because in some ways, like an actor who's known, Adam West's Batman or obviously Shatner known for Captain Kirk, I don't know that they love or didn't love a long time being asked about Budokan every single interview they had. And yet, it's been so many years, and that's still the kind of the image that a lot of people have of them. Even people that I know who say, "Well, I don't know who Cheap Trick is." He wrote this book, and I'll sing a verse to Surrender, or "I Want You to Want Me," or I'll forward them the clip of Mike DeMoe in Fast Times. They'll be like, "Oh yeah, yeah, I know those guys," and I think that's a huge part of their story is that in some ways, we've talked about they came back more than they were on top, and yet in some ways that they've kind of always been there, kind of like Zelig. They're just always there, kind of in the background. And I know that hasn't always been their choice. I know that they probably would prefer a more linear path to success. But yeah, I tried to really get into set, like I said, the era of Cheap Trick that people know them from, which is from when they're playing the bars, when they signed their Epic deal, when they were opening for seemingly everyone, then obviously play a series of shows in Japan, April and May of '78. The album comes out again, stories about that, have often been stretch. That's kind of Cheap Trick, part and parcel, that kind of mythology. And then, of course, they're, the cover of Rolling Stone and seemingly, to quote their own song, on top of the world. And then, roughly a year later, Tom leaves the band and things start, disintegrate, which, like I said, is kind of tragic because they seemingly were a very 80s band before there really was an 80s. They had a great look and they obviously had a sense of humor. Yes, they have videos that people remember, whether, Be Don't Be Cruel, Blonde in the Elvis suit or Up the Creek or She's Tight. But, unfortunately, they probably didn't have their best, success rate during that time. So, hopefully I can get a chance to write another book. That's been the biggest complaint I've got. The book was too short, which I do remind people that I had nothing to do with the font size. I had nothing to do with the size of the photos. I've been posting them on my blog just so people can see them, since I stretched the budget on the photos as far as I could. Some people gave me their stuff for free. You'll notice there's a lot of pictures of them in Germany in '79 and Auckland, really because those were the photographers that I was able to get to either, give me it for free or to get it for the favored nations price. So the most expensive part of the book, although it came from the publisher, was the cover shot, which I had never seen it before. I guess it appeared when the Rockford Register Star ran a whole series on Cheap Trick when they got into the Rock and Roll of Fame. I think the picture is there of them at the London Roundhouse. There was another shot that I have of them kind of crawling up the London Tube around that time, which I mean the same day, which I wanted to use, but I guess the size wasn't right. So it is amazing. I mean, how many again, how many times they were photographed, whether it be on stage or, and by pretty much every rock and roll photographer of the era. So I know that's a long answer to a short question, but yeah, the era of Cheap Trick that I focus on is the one that whether people know it or not, they know them from. And then I did put a whole chapter in there about kind of their role bouncing back in pop culture, or always being a pop culture, which, like I said, if I do a second volume, that's probably what I would focus on. Like I said, I did enough research for it, so I have folders upon folders of stuff. I'm giving myself the year to just see, how this does. But I mean, so far people have been very, very supportive and very nice. And I have nothing but positive so far.
Yeah, you got some great reviews, Variety. What was the one you just sent over?
Gold Mine, which was really nice.
Gold Mine, of course.
Uh,
These are staples for. music lovers and
Right. And the people who
collectors.
would, yeah, the people that would want a book on Cheap Trick.
Yeah,
So
of course.
more so than like than even though Rolling Stone, covers them still. I mean, that's probably not as much the demographic. So yeah, it was very cool. And like I said, I mean, pretty much everybody that I've spoken to has been very complimentary. Again, like I said, I think also because I went into it and put pretty forthright in the what's it called in the forward, that I didn't profess to necessarily be a cheap trick expert. I wasn't, if I was ever wrong about anything, I certainly would admit to it. I wasn't trying to reveal anything about them they didn't want revealed, as you know. I mean, that's part of their image is just kind of acting like they don't have the exact same, vices and rivalries and stuff that every other band has. I mean, I can't even imagine, especially a band that became huge in the mid '70s. It's amazing that they were able to play together, as long as they did. Most bands, I mean, break up way earlier.
Well, yeah, no, it's an amazing story. The band obviously broke big with the Kiss tour, the Love Gun tour in '77, which I was at in
It's
British
crazy.
Columbia, Vancouver, Pacific Coliseum, and what a show! I've seen Cheap Trick dozens of times, as we've spoken. Legendary shows like the premiere of the '70s show soundtrack in the parking lot of the Warehouse
But
Records, right there at Sunset and La Brea, kitty corner, diagonally across from A&M Records, and so many shows. House of Blues, the Palace Theater, across from the Capitol Records Tower, and um, Red Rocks, of course, opening for the Kinks. That was an amazing show. That
that
was
that
around.
must
That was around In Color. They probably had Heaven Tonight in the can because it's
They did. I think that, well, because I talked when I spoke to Ken Adamany, it was a one-off that, yeah, they played Red Rocks with the
yeah,
Kinks. They had on the Kinks tour, Ray and Dave were not in their best, even though Cheap Trick, like every other band, idolized them. And I know Ken Adamany, I did put in the book. He let me put the story in the book that the roadies, I guess I forget which one of the brothers went after him, but I can only imagine that beautiful venue, which I've never been to, but I mean,
well,
obviously being a huge Deadhead, I have, heard a million soundboard
yeah,
recordings from Red Rocks. So, but yeah, that was that. I want to say summer of '78, but I did find that odd because I remember asking him. I was like, "You guys had this
yeah,
kind
that
of
would be
fallout with
right.
the Kinks," and they went, well, to the research. I mean, I was seven. I would,
Yeah,
I wish I
yeah.
could
The
have gone.
summer of '77 was Kiss, so yeah, summer of
Yes,
'78 would be that
yeah,
show. And yeah, first come, first serve, general admission, no gates. You get there early, which hell, you've waited months for the show. Why not? You're in the front row. And they start coming around about 3 or 4 o'clock and start collecting tickets. And,
awesome.
they fill, of course, now there are gates in much more corporate nature, but still
And yeah, and
the
also
greatest natural amphitheater in the world.
I was gonna say also, I mean, the obviously the December '79 incident with the Who kind of, put a little bit of a pin in festival seating. Although, I mean, when I used to go out to Oakland
Well,
Coliseum,
most of that had to do with letting people through the door.
yeah,
They get crushed when they open four gates and there's 18,000 people trying to fit through four turnstiles. That's what happened there.
yeah. See, the only place that I know that they continue that is when I went to see the Dead in Oakland Coliseum and Bill Graham was still alive. I mean, when you went to Oakland Coliseum for Dead shows, you could get in early. There was literally a volleyball net on the back of the floor that the Bill Graham production employees would like play. So, but pretty much everywhere else on the East Coast. I mean, God, here, the idea of festival seating at some of these places, it would be dangerous.
Yeah, well, it's a different era, no question. I think also not only is Cheap Trick in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, but they're so admired. So many of the contemporary acts through the '80s, '90s. We talked about, of course, Smashing Pumpkins and Billy Corgan.
Yeah.
We talk about the guys from, Motley Crue to Enough's Enough to,
Pearl Jam, I mean,
Pearl
gee,
Jam. Yeah, you got Mike
Stone Temple
McCready
Pilot, but yeah,
doing your forward.
yeah, and
How did that happen? Did you know somebody that knew
that
him?
well, that much like pretty much everything I think I told you, it's really just anything I've ever gotten published has been just kind of persistence. Mike McCready was because when my first book, Drunk on Sunday, came out, which is a fictionalized account of going to 138 Dead shows, and as of Sunday, I guess 37 Charger games. I just counted them up. And finally, meeting a woman that would end all that because I ended up falling in love and became semi-responsible. When I did that book, I spoke on the Sirius XM Grateful Dead channel, and Rob Bleetstein is actually the archivist for the New Riders of the Purple Sage, and also a Deadhead from back in the day who grew up out here in Long Island. He also was the kind of, I guess, the main DJ on the Pearl Jam channel. So I was emailing him and said I was considering a book on Cheap Trick, and would maybe one of them be interested in talking to me. I don't think I even thought about the forward. And he gave me, I guess, Mike McCready's guy is what he said. And I just kept asking them for about a year. And they said, I mean, he loves Cheap Trick, absolutely. But obviously they were recording Dark Matter, and at first they were kind of like, okay, well, you'll have to sign this release and blah, blah, blah. And then, well, what is it you want him to write? And I said, you can write whatever he wants. He's Mike McCready. I think it'll be fine. And then they kind of just got worn down and just said, here it is. And I think I mean, obviously I published it, pretty much word for word what he wrote. And I think he was pleased with the book. I know in between US and Australian shows, his friend, Chris Adams, told me that, he was reading it in the 10 Club warehouse where I'd sent them their copies of the book. I sent one to him, one to Eddie, and one to Jeff Ament, who I know was almost equally a big Cheap Trick fan, and he actually ended up writing, coincidentally, the forward to Brian Cramp's book, which I didn't know about. So it was just persistence,
Yeah.
working
Well,
whatever.
that's the way the squeaky wheel gets the
Yeah,
grease.
that's one word for it. Yeah.
Yeah, but we love it. And, you've gone into detail, of course, the classic albums. To me, the first four albums, the debut, In Color, Heaven Tonight, and Dream Police are one of the best four opening runs of any band out there. And, not to put down the, All Shook Up and some of the other great ones. I think consistently there's always good material, but when you mess with the original lineup, it does get a little. Some people are like, it's not the exact band, And I know Tom had his reasons, but he's been back in the band for how many years now? When did Tom
He
rejoin?
came back. Well, he officially came back in concert with them in December, say 27th. I think it was at San Juan Capistrano, but he had actually played with them in March, say 14th. Ken Anime pointed out in one of the Rockford bars where I think they were just trying to figure out if they could kind of get along, and then obviously. I guess there was some business end to it. So I know Bunny Carlos joked about, they were going to call themselves kind of like Xander, Nielsen, Peterson, and Carlos because they weren't sure they could, play as Cheap Trick. So, yeah, his first show was in '87, late '87, and again, typical Cheap Trick. They didn't make any real big press release. They didn't make any, real big announcement. He just walked on stage. You can hear it. There's a bootleg, which I'm sure is on YouTube also. You can hear, the people are freaking out, but they didn't tell anybody, which is again very typical because they didn't mention anything when he flew from Canada, out and Pete Comita came in. So it's very much like them to do that, to have no, fanfare.
Yeah, well, look at Kiss, who helped break him. I mean, Kiss went through a number of guitarists in that era. Vinnie Vincent, Bruce Kulick, Mark St. John. The whole thing coming after Ace Frehley and all that. But it's par for the course. I mean, things
I
just
saw all four
happen.
of them, I can say once. Jones Beach, the summer of 2000, although I guess it's been known now that Ace, was obviously not in the greatest state, and he would show up for what's it called? He I guess he would show up for the show, and whoever, I don't know who they had like on standby, but there was a stand.
Tommy Thayer
Yeah,
was backing
and,
him up.
Ace would be almost nonplussed when he saw it. He'd be like, "Oh, okay, cool." Basically they had him there because obviously millions of dollars was riding on him getting to the show, and
Yeah,
uh, when I saw them, it was a triple bill that summer of them, Nugent, and Faith No More. So they sounded great. It's the first time I had seen Kiss, which I mean, I thought it was fantastic, but I had nothing to
yeah.
judge against.
Well, tell us about the origin of the title of your book, American Standard.
American Standard is obviously the title of, or is the name of the plumbing company. If you look at any most bathrooms, you'll see it on the toilet. I think actually this weekend when I stayed in Foxborough with my son for the Charger game, it was there. But I think it's even in Wikipedia that the joke that another Cheap Trick myth was that they said that the Epic wanted to call Heaven Tonight American Standard because the photo shoot was done obviously in a bathroom, and when you opened it up, the vinyl, you had in the front, you had Tom and Robin looking like full 70s dreamboats, and on the back you had Rick and Bun, brushing their teeth, and Bun was adjusting his tie, and then in typical Cheap Trick fashion, Rick had Easter egg sort of planted. He had the photo from in color, just the side of Tom and Robin that was actually shot at Shea Stadium. But I always heard that, and then I was speaking to Jim Charn, who was the product manager from Epic, who was it was recommended to me by Doug Brode, who wrote the book Seems Just a Little Weird about Cheap Trick and Kiss and Stars and Aerosmith, and he said you should talk to him. He's he definitely remembers a lot. So I'd mentioned the American Standard story, and he said that no, actually that we were never going to call it that. He's like that was a joke I made, when they did the photo shoot. It was always going to be Heaven Tonight. He's like, but I thought it kind of had a cool double entendre, which is a very Cheap Trick. Like, we could call it American Standard, and in some ways, they are an American Standard. So I thought that was what would be really cool for a title. Originally, I was going to name it after a surrender quote. I think I was going to say like "You'll never know what you'll catch," which is a reference to the DVD. But then the publisher told me that unless I could get the rights to the lyrics from Rick, then I could. So I went with American Standard. So I thought it was cool that I could get the name out there. And again, they are truly an American Standard. I think Alice Cooper once called them America's house band, and that's sort of what they become. So that's the genesis of the title. But I do think if you go on Heaven Tonight on the Wikipedia page, it says that that was Epic's proposed, and also that was very much Rick especially, and Bun did it too, just kind of slagging the record company, to use a British term, and that the Epic the suits wanted to do one thing and they wanted another, but they did they did want to call it Heaven Tonight the band because they figured there was no way that they would release that song as a single because it's this long, cashmere like, song about, heroin use, which doesn't come from their experience, but they certainly knew people that did it. So they figured, we'll, there's no way they'll release that as a single. But yeah, that's part of that kind of, run, like you said, of albums. I guess Budokan, of course, is its own separate thing, but that
Yeah,
Tom Warner produced them. And I think, that's the album that having tonight that sounds the most like them. At least it's the one they complain the least about, which they did do it very quickly. They did it out in California. They were leaving for Europe. I mean, there are alternate takes that you can hear when Epic and CBS released all the original albums in '98. There's an earlier version of Surrender, but it does pretty much sound like them. So that they sound like the Cheap Trick that went to Japan. And that was the album that technically they were promoting when they played those shows. So when Robin, famously introduces Surrender and says this is the first song on our new album, which the Beastie Boys would later use as the first song on their new album when they did Jimmy James and Check Your Head. The album they were referring to was Heaven Tonight, which was coming out early in Japan. You can see pictures of it being released in Japan, but it hadn't come out here yet. So yeah, that's the genesis of the title American Standard, which I it came out. I mean, I'm glad that I actually ended up not using song lyrics because, as my wife pointed out, my original title was pretty wordy, and she said, she's not everybody's going to get it, and my attitude was, well, that's their problem. They should get it, but when you're writing a book and you want it to sell, I guess you have to, be a little bit more flexible.
yeah. I mean, you could have called it Surrender. You can't copyright a song
Yeah,
title
I mean,
per se. When you're
yeah,
starting to get a string of lyrics with 6, 7, 8 words in a
right,
row,
a couplet.
you
I mean, it was explained to me, yeah, right, what I could do. But again, yeah. I thought I did the same thing with my first book. I mean, I didn't outwardly use any dead lyrics, but I made them kind of, if you knew what I was talking about, you knew what I was talking about. And so I thought that it ended up being, again, a cool kind of workaround, just like, not necessarily speaking to the band themselves. I mean, I would, like I said, if they had wanted to, but I kind of got the vibe they never really had any interest in it. So it allowed me to be a little bit more. I wasn't being creative, but a little more, I guess, industrious and in the way I went about doing it. But yeah, I mean, I was really happy with, like I said, the cover. That picture I love of them. The full shot you can see like there's like crates behind it. I know there was a whole photo shoot that day before that show because that was the last show of their European leg. I mean, it is literally the show before they go to Japan. And the again, the urban legend was that they hadn't played, they weren't going to play I Want You to Want Me, and yet although somebody I did have on the internet an audio of the Roundhouse show, I couldn't get it. But I mean, in the New Musical Express review, it talks about how they played I Want You to Want Me, and they played roughly the same set they would play in Japan. They played He's a Whore at the Roundhouse, which they did not play. They talked about doing it. In Japan. I'm sure that was part of the rehearsal. So, yeah, I love the picture. Like I said, it's just, the classic cheap trick that everybody knows, Rick being goofy and, Bun having that like cool John Shaft, leather trench coat on and Robin and Tom looking, like, they stepped out of the, pages of, Tiger Beat magazine, which they would later be in. Not by their own choosing. So, I really liked it. And the pictures themselves, like I said, especially the shot with Joan Jett. I was really happy to get that out there because Jenny Lenz, who took that picture has been shown a million times, of Tom kissing her on the cheek backstage on April 1st, 77, and Rick kind of looking surprised. And I mean, a lot of those photographers on the Kiss tour, on the Heaven Tonight tour, they didn't always get compensated. I mean, the bigger ones, the Paul Natkins of Chicago and maybe the Lynn Goldsmiths, the ones or Annie Leibovitz, they got, I think, compensated. A lot of these pictures, they just got floated around all the rock scene and circus, obviously. So I was happy they could get it out there and get it, properly credited. Because the pictures of either Joan Jett wearing a Cheap Trick shirt or other members of the Runaways wearing a Cheap Trick shirt, they were everywhere as part of that kind of LA promotion machine. And so I mean that was nice. Like I said, there were some good shots like I was able to put in there from the whiskey that haven't appeared. I don't think they're on the box set that was released or even on the vinyl version. Jeffrey Mayer took one of them, so it's cool to see those, especially just the idea of seeing them in a small club. I mean, a lot of the earlier pictures of them I didn't really include, them playing inside those bars. But those you can see them online. Places with super low ceilings where Rick famously would punch out the tiles kind of as a habit. And you can see, I mean, why he would do that because he's standing. This is when they started building him that little perch that he ran up and down. Still, well, no, I don't know if he has the perch anymore, but he had the perch for a while. But in some of the smaller places, and he was literally right up against the top of the room. So, yeah, like I said, I'm pleased. I wish the pictures were a little bit bigger in the book. I had no say in that. I could tell people the book was 275 pages on my end. I was told to stick to a word count, and then I went back and put stuff in anyways, references that I thought were really important that were just kind of stupid to other people, that they were showing an ABC made-for-TV movie with Howard Hessman the night that the Budokan movie premiered in Canada, like little stupid stuff like that I like because it is a very research heavy book. I mean, I think I wrote with my own voice. You can see elements of that in there, but I packed it with a lot of information and I tried to, with a lot of respect to the fan base, put stuff in there that if I was reading a book on my favorite band, what would I want to, know? I'd want to know every little tidbit. And there are people who are super in tune. Like, if I uncovered, anything that they hadn't already heard, like, where did I get that? Oh, it's like Jack Black and High Fidelity. Oh, it's so good. I wish that was mine. So I'm glad that, I haven't been, called out for anything being blasphemous or anything like that.
Well, we appreciate it. Definitely a treat for all the Trick fans. And if you're wondering what all the hubbub is, why people are so loyal and love this band over the last 50 years, check it out. It is American Standard. It is written by our special guest, Ross Warner. Ross, thanks for joining us, man.
Pleasure.
We love all that you do, and hopefully we'll continue to network and stay in touch and
Absolutely.
enjoy this
Absolutely.
great music and all the beautiful things that comes from it. Appreciate your time.
My pleasure.
Have a great weekend.
You too.
Take care.